I'm doing this live. I'm literally just come out the supermarket, picking up a few things for the family, my kids, etc. Apologies if you're just seeing my head, but this is a subject that seems to be cropping up a lot at the moment amid everything that's going on with COVID-19, coronavirus. I literally just overheard two sets of parents individually talking about their kids and their kids' reaction to what's happening. And one lady was saying, you know, I genuinely don't know how to explain this to my children. You know, one of her daughters was almost hysterical. They'd heard something in the classroom through another child. Then the other lady mentioned the fact that her son had something said by the teacher, which had created an alarm for him. And he then went home and had a conversation about, you know, what's the impact on the family. I have two daughters, and this is really a message to all of you parents listening to this. And remember, this is just my view, my belief system. Anything I say doesn't have to be your belief system. If I try and frame this up and give you some context, I've been in the field of personal development, working with people from all over the world now for some 30 years. My first audience I was in front of was probably when I was like 19, 20 years of age, and I'm 54, so you get some context of the period. And when you're in that space, in this field for this long, you tend to hear patterns, you have conversations with people, you see patterns, I should say. And I've done a lot of interventional work over the years with people that have had major challenges, and much of the work I do with grown-ups, adults, and I'm talking about teenagers through to 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 year age people who are carrying blocks. Some of that work I've done, and if any of you have been in a room with me and seen me do these interventions with people, you'll know that often somebody's having a meltdown, they're self-harming, they've attempted something not pleasant to themselves, potentially, you know, attempted suicide, whatever. And when I dig down and peel the onion and start doing unconscious work with them and live in front of an audience, ask certain questions, a lot of it stems back to conversations they saw between two parents, or conversations they witnessed with their parents. And these have left what are called significant emotional events, or significant emotional scars, or psychic wounds. There's lots of different language in the world of psychology that people use. And so I've had a lot of time to work with people on this, and the drilling down of that process has led me to then help them unlock that. And often it's to do with something that happened, like what's happening at the moment, which is really enhanced their emotional state, for want of a better word. In neuro-linguistic programming, they refer to it as peak state. And when you have a peak state anchored to an experience like a breakup with a loved one, think about back to when you were in your, you know, those of you watching this, and you had a loved one, you fell in love with somebody, could be a childhood love, and then that broke up, and at that moment in time there was a specific song playing all the time. And now when you hear that song, you go back to that memory and you immediately remember that emotion, that scene. We have it with perfumes. You might remember somebody from the past or an aftershave, and it's so anchored to that person that when you smell it, you instantly remember that person. That is our unconscious anchoring to a heightened experience. That's what's happening at the moment. We have right now a global state of heightened awareness to COVID-19, coronavirus, whatever it is, but more importantly, the impact of that on our lives. So as a parent, and I'm just sharing this because I'm a parent of two kids, and the psychological work that I do with people and the human interventional work that I've done with people has made me very, very conscious about the type of conversation that we have. An example being, today myself and my lovely lady were talking about the subject, and you know, about some of the things that we just heard just recently. And of course, rumors are rumors, but it was like disseminating fact from rumors. And as we were talking about it, my 11-year-old walked in the room, and she immediately picked up on it. She caught the back end of the sentence, and normally we try and separate those conversations, and she started asking questions. I got back last night from speaking to a group of people in London. Last time I'm probably going to do that for a while, and yeah, it's actually been a meeting during the course of the day as well. And my daughter said to me, "Daddy, you know, if I sleep in the same room with you, is something going to happen?" So the kids, you know, we have to remember, kids are not stupid, and they hear stuff. So if you said to me, you know, what, from all the work I've done with people over the years, what do I think would be a good way to manage this as a parent, but also as an interventional coach? I would say, first of all, you can, in the book Turning Point that I wrote, one of the things I wrote about was managing the environment that you're living in. I think it was like step 5 in the process of a transformational change in your life is managing the environment that you're in. I sat next to somebody yesterday, literally, who said to me that he physically changed the environment within which they were living based on a conversation he had with me and a subject that I covered at an event many, many years ago. And that change in environment helped both him and his family and his daughters change their mental environment so that they were waking up and living in an environment which was more healthy for them in terms of their emotions. Well, we create that environment on a daily basis. Every single day we have a conversation in our home about a subject outside of our home. We are bringing the outside conversation, we're bringing the outside environment into our home. Doesn't matter how you look at it, the mind doesn't understand the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And in neurolinguistic programming, for example, they talk about the map is not the territory, meaning that when you look at something, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's real to you. When you picture something, it doesn't necessarily mean it's real to you, but your mind believes that it's real. So if you have a conversation about COVID-19, the coronavirus, and it's a negatively geared conversation, it's a fear-driven conversation, even though you're living in your little cocoon of a home, and people are talking about the fact that they're staying inside now for a week or 2 weeks, elderly people, and that's a whole other conversation I need to do on another video, by the way, about elderly people, because that's another conversation I've been having today with people. I've been asked questions about how to manage that, and what about parents, etc. How am I doing it? My parents are in the 70s and 80s. But I want to keep that for a separate video. So our children, their ecosystem, their world, their belief system. I mean, you're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years of age. That first 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 11 years, literally, their world is based on our world. If your parents watching this right now, every sentence, every word, every tonality, every physiological shift that you have, the way you communicate yourself in front of your parents, in front of your kids, will absolutely sit in their psyche, and it will stay there in some cases for decades. And if you don't believe me, come and see one of my events that I run when we start running events again, and you'll see how unbelievable it is that a certain experience happened when somebody, and I say to somebody like they're 60 something like that, and when did this happen? It'll take me back, and I walk them back through the process, and you can see a shift. They get emotional, and I go, well, okay, what was that? What year was that? What date? What age were you? And they say, I was 12, I was 13, I was 11. What happened? And they describe it. That one incident created a significant emotional event that meant that they left this emotional scar that goes down deep into our psychology. It goes into our unconscious mind. It goes into the cells in our body, and we remember it in the same way, a piece of music might trigger off a memory, as I said already. So I'm just flicking up because lots of people are sending me messages. I'm talking to you. So that means you have to be the person that controls the environment in your home with your kids. And what I mean by that is choose your words carefully, choose the subject carefully, be mindful of whatever you say to them can create a fear in them that can last for years. But more importantly, right now, it can create a fear that at this little young age where they're vulnerable, we are the one thing that protect them. So we protect them physically, emotionally, and verbally. If we say the wrong thing, it can leave that scar. So when you're talking about this subject, is it even appropriate to talk about it in front of them? What age does it become appropriate? What age is it not appropriate? And I can't give you an answer to that. When the subject comes up at home, we talk about it in a softer way, meaning, so for example, we're encouraging our kids to wash their hands, obviously, but also you've probably heard me talk about this. We juice, we take certain supplements. We have a green drink, which you've probably heard me talk about in the previous messages, which is good green stuff. It's a scoop of this with water and some extra things, and we know it's going to help their immune system. Will it prevent it happening to them? I can't guarantee that. Will it stop them getting coronavirus if they happen to go out and get in contact with somebody and then they suddenly contract it? I can't guarantee that. But what I'm doing is I'm teaching my children at the moment, do the best you can to improve your immune system. So if they got their eye on something sweet or sugary, or they say, oh, mummy, can I eat this? Or daddy, we're like, you know what? We really want to look after your health. So we tell them from a health perspective, We want you to be the strongest and the healthiest you can be to resist this. And when the children have asked us, well, how do people get sick? We explain about the immune system, and we say, look, everybody's immune system is different, and your immune system's like a defensive wall. And if the defensive wall is really high, the bugs, the germs, the virus can't climb over the wall and it can't attack you. And they get that because they understand this concept. And then we talk about the fact that when your immune system is low, it's a little bit like somebody's taking a hammer and breaking down the wall to a point where the virus rocks up to the wall and goes, hey, no wall, let me just crawl over and get to you. And the kids get that. And then the obvious question then is from a child, well, how do I get my immune system up? How do I get my brick wall up? And we say, well, drinking the right drink, you know, the green drink, the juice, whatever, that really helps. That builds the wall back up. Eating lots of fresh vegetables, which they kind of know already, and they do that routinely, that helps. Every time you bring down the wall, that's like eating a sugar bar. That's like eating some sugary sweets over there, or having this can of pop or whatever. So it brings the wall down. And that's our way of explaining it to them. And that visual for children, they get it. And you might have seen some of the adverts in the cinemas recently. They've just been talking about, you know, let's attack and everybody eat the vegetables and things like that. So this is a way of articulating to a child in a way that they understand. Whereas if you say, oh, you know, this thing's going to attack you, it's going to kill you, look at all these people that are dying. Children, they see it as real. I mean, my daughter's twice asked me in the last week, Daddy, you know, is it possible I might die if I go and meet so-and-so, or if I go and have a play date with so-and-so? So we're trying to explain to them that there's a period where the germs get tired beating against the wall, and finally they disappear, they go away. And how do you do that? Well, if we all stay in the same environment together and we protect ourselves, that will help. And we build the wall, we build a high wall, and we build the wall long enough, it'll keep the germs out, like the enemy out. And that's one of the ways we've articulated it. We've chosen not to have dark, deep conversations and the rumor type conversations that we're hearing. Oh, somebody in the village has got this, and we just heard this about so and so, because children are very smart. They pick things up. And not only that, your body language. Now, I haven't even talked to you about something called reverse speech. Many of you, if you follow me over the last half a decade, you'll know about 4 or 5 years ago, I used to run some seminars, and we actually took people through a process where their unconscious communication, when they're talking to somebody, could be literally pulled apart, and you could hear dialogue. And I did an intervention with a couple that were going through a breakup. Literally, whilst on the phone to them, I recorded a conversation between the two of them, and they were talking about the fact that how does our daughter know that, you know, why do they keep coming up and saying to us, Mummy, Daddy, please stay together, you know, you're not going to leave me, are you? And yet they say they hadn't had a conversation in front of their daughter about what's going on between them. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, there is a form of communication that happens unconsciously between two people, and this concept of reverse speech is where you can actually pull apart somebody's conversation and hear what they're saying in reverse, and children can pick it up. And I said to them, when I went back over the recordings with them, they were shocked at what they could hear. The point being that when you're talking to your kids, even if you try and hide stuff, and your unconscious mind is thinking, oh my God, this is really bad, it will come across to your children. So I think honesty is important, but it's a filtered honesty in a way that doesn't leave them with a scar. I don't know if that makes sense. It's a little bit like taking a knife to the body versus maybe a slap or a thump. The thump is a bruise. It will leave a bit of a bruise, but it's different if you had a knife in your hand, or somebody had the knife in their hand when they were coming at you. So you've got, you know, if you're watching this and you're a parent, I'm trying to paint a picture rather than be specific, because I don't know you, I don't know your children, and it wouldn't be fair for me to tell you how to talk to your children. I'm just sharing with you what I've experienced and what I found from the conversations with people. I've done interventional work with them, and I've asked them, what was the conversation with your parents? It was very direct, it was very undermining, and it made the child's sense of worth come down. It also made the children, so this is a feedback to you, is the people that I've worked with that have had pain in the past or vulnerability and not be able to deal with stress in the future, is because they watched their parents deal with stress in a bad way. The parents imparted that onto the kids, didn't make the children feel empowered to the point where the children didn't feel they had a set of tools on how to deal with a situation like that, and as such then found themselves, when they were growing up, not being able to manage those situations, because the only model they had in their mind of a situation like this was witnessing their parents deal with it, and then how their parents transferred that onto them as children. And so now what you've got is somebody growing up with a weak set of tools on how to deal with a situation like this. And it's an emotional protection, which of course is not strong. So how do you deal with that? You've got to have a healthy conversation with your children in such a way that you're not hiding them from it, but at the same time you're not completely excluding them from it as well. So we tend to explain it to them in a way where we say, look, we do have to be careful, and you know, it's the washing of the hands, there is something going around the world at the moment, and if they hear things about people dying, you know, are we going to die? We don't say you're not going to die. We simply say we want to make sure that we protect ourselves from and keep our immune systems really strong so we stay healthy. And if we do that, we're you know, as a family, we're going to be fine. And that's the sort of conversation. Whereas I have overheard parents literally saying, if you don't do this, you know, this thing's going to kill you, etc. And of course it leaves children with this really dark scar in their minds. So I think manage the conversations, think about the sentence structures that you use, and do it in a way that's elegant and gives your children a chance to feel empowered. So show them how they can look after themselves, and explain to them a little bit about how it works, but at the same time share with them how they can look after you and the family as well together. I'm going to sign off. I've got to get this back to the kids. Hopefully that was of some value to you. If you want to throw some messages up, I'm happy to come back and talk to this subject separately. It's Dr. Oat signing out.